Welcome back to another video, guys. This is Saiyan here. We're going to be talking about Ridge Racer Type 4 and the necessary settings to operate on DuckStation Emulator, which if you have PC or a laptop, it's relatively easy to use. But I've been doing some research in terms of the 60 FPS, wondering what is the right settings to make the game run smooth and run clear. I know some people have been talking about differing off, or some people even talk about overclocking settings with the 60 FPS, but it makes the game run too fast and a bit inaccurate. Because most PS1 games, when you put the 60 FPS code and you enable the CPU overclocking settings, it works tremendously. I mean, between Metal Gear Solid, Need for Speed, some of the games on PS1, at least the categories, whether it be action, driving, or whatever, they don't necessarily need the 60 FPS, because as soon as you enable the CPU overclocking settings, they go to 60 FPS just with a tad bit of increase, because you don't have to do too much of an increase. We're going to talk more about that in depth in this video, so let's get started. So the first thing we're going to really do is we're going to go to this website here, and if you don't have DuckStation installed, make sure that you actually have this installed. And after you're done having that installed, which would be relatively simple to use, mind you, this is not only for PC or Apple or whatever. The settings that I'm going to be showing you could be used if you have the proper firmware or the hardware to use it, because sometimes people don't really know how to utilize those things, and you have to go step by step. But don't worry, this video we'll be going step by step on what to do to have Type 4, because I know a lot of people have been wondering if the game can work on 60 FPS. Make sure you get also too, if I'm not forgetting, that you would have to get the BIOS as well too. The PS1 BIOS is just as important for every Sony oriented form of emulation. Aside from the PS3 emulator, you obviously have to get BIOS. So once you're done installing that in the BIOS, you're gonna go to the DuckStation folder, and I know my desktop is looking rather sloppy, and then you're gonna open up DuckStation. I already had it open, so I don't know why I reopened it again. That's a bit of a oopsie. But as you can see, I have Ridge Racer Type 4 here, right? And a lot of the questions are, does this run in 60 FPS? And when I enable 60 FPS and I use, or at least try to use, the overclocking setting in DuckStation, it makes the game run too fast. Well, the thing is, what these videos are not really showing you is the versions of the game. So basically, the version that I have is US. I don't have the Japanese version or the PAL version, which I assume would be European. And in the PAL version, dither option is removed, because you can remove differ in multiple ways, which is the ways that I'm about to show you right now. So you're gonna right click on the game and go to properties, and the first thing you're gonna do when you go to properties is go to console, make sure your cheats are enabled, right? And you're gonna turn all this up. For somebody who likes to play the game consistently, when you're done, finishing a Grand Prix, after final and after the epilogue is done, and you see a black screen, this is when you essentially turn it off, and then it'll go right back to its normal setting, or its normal operations at least. Because I know a lot of people have been asking about that, and they, have a bit of issues when it comes to that. But just make sure you turn that off when whenever you finish each Grand Prix, because there's 4 different teams, 4 different manufacturers, and so forth. So I set that to 1000%. And the reason why I turned this off, the red, right, is because all the other settings that are applied to it is gonna make the game run smooth with no problems. And I'll show the presentation, a little bit after we go through the settings. So you're going to leave this disabled, and then you're going to go to emulation, optimal frame pacing, and skip duplicate frame display. And this is a bit easy to understand, but for most games, you want to make sure that, I don't know if most of you can tell, is whenever you can't run a game in 60 FPS, and the most you would probably get is like 50 or something, depending on hardware, right? You would necessarily want to use this option, because what it does is formulated, or at least collaborating with all the other options on, it makes the frames run smooth. It just skips those unnecessary frames that you don't necessarily need. But you're only going to have these two options on, you know. Make sure you have VSync off, because of course if you have the overclocking setting on, there's no point of having, you know, VSync on. Then you're going to go to graphics, and to make the game look clear without any of, I wouldn't say shading issues, but more so texture issues or blurry or anything like that, you want to run these particular settings. So the resolution is 9x 4K, downsampling is disabled, texture filtering is linear, and the texture filtering is XBR. If you have a great hardware, it shouldn't necessarily be a problem. You should be able to run it smooth, these options, with every particular game. Maybe not every game, but the majority of the games on, you know, DuckStation. And adaptive fast MAD, only overscan area, linear smooth. And you're gonna turn on true color rendering, PGXP geometry correction, disable interlacing, the widescreen, the FMV, and force NTSC. And then when you go to the advanced, you're gonna put true color debanding and threaded presentation. And the reason why you're gonna turn those settings on from the rendering to the advanced is because as you're skipping those unnecessary frames, it's presenting to you new frames in which are accurate, responsive, and yeah, the game may be running at 37 FPS with it overclocked to 1000%, but at least you're actually getting smooth and precise frames instead of it being skip delayed, and it just looks like you're, how can I put this, that you would be having a game to where it's clear, you can see the background and it looks like the differing is off, but you would just have better display, better graphics, better detail, and accurate frames, because that's the most important. And for these particular settings, obviously I have perspective correct textures, color correction, disable on 2D polygons, correct colors, and basically what this particular setting does, I mean, you don't have to have it on, but in retrospect, these particular settings on make it to where it gives that true color, kind of like if you're playing Ridge Racer Type 4 on PS1, you're giving the exact color, resolution, graphic detail, and so forth. I don't really have any other particular settings on, so that's the only settings that you really need to do. So we'll go back over it again. For the rendering, you know, we have these particular settings on. For the advanced, we have this as well too, and then this. So make sure you guys, you know, remember that. Of course, it would obviously be in the video, you screenshot or however you would remember it, because people got different methods and so forth. So now what we're gonna do is that we're gonna go to the game and we're gonna do a fresh boot, just so I can show you guys how the game is presented, and you know, really to just give you a good idea of what, you know, Type 4 actually looks like in a clean or more balanced setting. Because most of the games in which, you know, run very well on the station, they can't run at 60 FPS because it makes the game unstable. But there is a good way, a good and efficient way that you can run Type 4 the way you would want to. So I'm just going to start up Ramprix. I'm going to go to, you know, any particular team just to kind of start it up. So for example, I'll just start it up from here and then just skip everything just so that way you guys can see the gameplay. By the way, I actually have, you know, reshade on, so it makes the game a little bit brighter. So sorry if you guys have a bit of problems with viewing the game as opposed to anything. But as you can see, you know, the game's detail, graphics, and so forth is moving at 60 F. But that's just the menu. We're gonna go straight into the game so that way you guys can view it. And let me know your opinions in the comment section, because you know, I want to make sure that all of this isn't inaccurate and you guys actually get a good idea of how the game is run. So as you can see, you know, it's moving at 30 FPS, and you know, this is actually the best that you're gonna ever have it, you know, run, because 60 FPS makes it completely unstable and it makes it completely unbalanced for you to play. But as you can see, things are shiny, you know, and it really gives an extra feel or a nostalgic feel to this game. I only hope that when you guys use these particular settings that you can kind of see for yourself. But of course, you're not going to really have like the reshade stuff on, because you know, the reshade only makes it to where it's brighter. I have it set for all games, but it's not necessarily, you know, needed. Without it, the game still looks clean and beautiful, but it just makes it to where the frames are not as delayed per se. There's no delayed frames, it's just accurate frames, as you can really tell. So if you find this video to be rather useful, make sure you guys subscribe, like, and let me know your comments. Let me know how you feel about the game and the settings, or at least the accurate settings I gave you. Again, you know, I was kind of disappointed to see that the game can't run at 60 FPS, although it would be very beautiful, because a lot of us actually like Type 4. You know, some of us may have different interests for different Ridge Racer games or different racing games in general, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys have correct detailed documentation, or at least the correct way of how to run the game, because I don't think a lot of people are useful in terms of information. Maybe they want to keep it to themselves or so forth. I'm not really gonna sit there and judge based off of, you know, what I do know and don't know, you know, because it's kind of wrong for me to be doing that. But at least this video, hopefully it would be helpful for you. But just let me know what you guys think. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and peace.